the period of 1930s is very crucial to understand the future of the fight that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar launched, and the beginning of 1930s is very crucial in terms of the political future of India, because that was a time when a very important process was taking up in England, and that is the discussion on the political future of India, which is famous as the Round Table Conference, which had 3 rounds starting in earlier 30s. And in the middle of the Round Table Conference, there was a question of the distribution of power, because it was made clear in 1917 that the power will be transferred gradually to the Indians. At the RTC, the Round Table Conference also involved discussion on not only the transfer of power from the British to the Indians, but also it brought into open the mechanism of the distribution of power among the Indians. So we can say that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar in the early 30s worked on Indian constitutional reforms, and he discussed a lot of issues, including the electoral process, including the judiciary, so on and so forth. One of the main points that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar traced during these discussions is the point of direct voting or direct elections, while Gandhi and Congress opposed the direct elections, but Gandhi was in favor of the indirect election, which means looking at the discussion from the present day context, we can certainly see that we owe so much for adult franchise and democratic process and the parliamentary democracy to the very keen knowledge and intellect of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. He not only stood for the direct elections, but also he opposed the nominations in the Legislative Assembly, because he favored the direct elections compared to the nomination and other forms of representation, because he saw that the nomination will leave the power in the hands of very few and it's not democratic. So he realized the importance of the direct elections in the distribution of power among the Indians. He participated very keenly in various aspects of discussion, and all those discussions led to tabling of India Bill in the British Parliament in 1934. So after the end of the discussion, after the end of all rounds of the Round Table Conference, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar came back to India in 1934. Of course, he was not happy, because whatever he has achieved for his followers was taken away by Gandhi and Congress. So he was certainly not happy, and he told his followers that he will fight very hard to gain what is being lost due to the political pressure of Gandhi and Congress. So when he came back, he made it clear in 1934 that he is not interested in politics. He made it very clear that he is not interested in politics, and he said that he would like to write a book on army, bringing in the constitutional development as to how the constitutional developments will lead to the formation or to the development of army in India. So when he came back from England, he was not well, because he was very tired. He worked so hard in the early 30s that he became seriously ill, and he retired in Mahabadeshwar to have some rest for a few days. But he came back in the public life, and he joined Government Law College in June 1934, and he became a part-time professor in the Government Law College in June 1934. The same year he got himself built a home which is not a normal home, because that was the home built for the books. And Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar studied very many architectural designs of various buildings, and he wanted to build his house in such a way that it will reflect all different experiences of his life. So on the first floor, the house was meant for the domestic purposes, but on the second floor he had a big library where he used to sit with his books and contemplate and write. So most of the times whenever he was home was spent in the library that he built, and his home was named as Rajagriha. The same year he went to Daulatabad, and in Daulatabad he was discriminated by the Muslims, and a mob of Muslims came abusing Dr. Ambedkar and his followers as theirs, and they wanted to drive him away, and that incidents might have led to the violence, but some of the guarded men of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar shielded him and he took him away from the place. So from these incidents we can also see that not only the Hindus were and are affected by the caste system, but also we saw how the Parsis discriminated against Dr. Ambedkar when he was in Baroda. Now in Daulatabad he was discriminated by the Muslims. So we can see that the caste has penetrated all religious systems in India. This was a very important period because Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar was keeping a very close eye on the political developments that were taking place in terms of the discussion on the future of India through the bill called the India Bill, which was tabled in the British Parliament. And there was one conservative MP, Right Honorable A.W. Goodman, who was pleading on the behalf of the untouchables, and he was advocating that suitable rights should be given to the untouchables. So the discussion on the India Bill began on December 19, 1934, and it occupied Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar's time because he has to keep a very close eye on the discussions. So in 1935, which is a very crucial year because some very significant developments have taken place during this year, Ramabai died on May 27, 1935. She was ill, she was tired because she has been working hard all her life, and she took charge of the Rajagriha. She was a very pious and very devout woman, and she wanted Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar to take her to Pandharpur. But as we know that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar told to her that he is planning to build a new Pandharpur for her, but she didn't live to see that dream come true, and she breathed her last on May 27, 1934. So when she died, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar became very sad because she was a companion, and she was a very good companion for a long time, and she supported Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar so much during his ups and downs in his life. And when she died, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar was so sad, and he got her final rites performed by a Mahar priest whose name was Shambhu More. And Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar was so sad at the death of Ramabai that he gave up wearing the normal clothes, and he started wearing the dress of a sannyasi. He tonsured his head and he became a sannyasi for a short period of time. He gave up the world and he became a hermit for a short period of time. But on June 1st, 1935, he was appointed as the principal of the law college where he was the part-time professor. So he became the principal of the law college, and being a principal of the law college, he had not only the educational or the teaching responsibilities, but at the same time he had the administrative responsibilities. And when Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar took on this job of principal of the law college, people started gossiping that now Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar is content and he won't be joining the politics. He will become a high court judge, or he will enter into Supreme Court, or he will make law his bastion, and he will never leave, and he will never join the politics of the day. And there were several rumors around Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar's becoming a sort of man who is interested in the judicial process and not in politics. So in the same year 1935, the British government passed, or the British Parliament passed, what is now famous as the Government of India Act 1935. The Government of India 1935 Act is the bedrock of the future Constitution of India, and most of the things are derived from the Government of India Act 1935. Though the Act talked about in details about the direct elections, it talked about the Constitution. It was a Constitution of India. 1935 Act was like a mini Constitution or the Constitution of India at that time. It didn't give any responsible government. But Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar decided to work with the constitutional framework and develop his strategies according to that. So, in 1935, depressed classes had arranged a big conference in Evla, and the date of the conference was 13th October 1935, where about 10,000 people came as a participants in the conference. Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar gave a very important speech in that conference on 13th October 1935. Till that day, he was fighting to show that how the untouchables are not the Hindus. He was making this point again and again. The Kalaram temple entry movement was utter failure. The Mahad Satyagraha proved it beyond doubt to the untouchables that they are not the part of the Hinduism. And therefore, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar convened this Evla conference, which is supposed to be one of the landmark events in the entire movement of the untouchables. So here, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar made a very important point when he addressed the people, a mass of 10,000 people coming from all over Maharashtra and other parts. He said that Hinduism is Brahmanism, and Hinduism has only benefited the Brahmins, and therefore there is no point in remaining a Hindu, because the untouchables have no benefit in the Hinduism. Therefore, it's very important to relinquish or to give up the Hinduism. And here in Evla, on that very day, 30th October 1935, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar gave a lion's call, saying that he will not die a Hindu. So he announced with the lion's roar that he is not going to die a Hindu, and that roar sent shivers in the Indian political religious sphere. When Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar declared that he won't die a Hindu, the people from all various religious traditions came to woo him in their fold. So according to some of the records, the Nizam of Hyderabad, who was supposed to be the richest man in the world, offered about 40 to 50 million rupees to Dr. Ambedkar, requesting him to join the Islam. Bishop Badley and other Christian missionaries also offered the similar kind of incentives. They said that we will look after you. Sikhs also joined the fray, and they wanted to woo Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar in their fold. Also the Buddhists, but the response of the Buddhists was very strange. They criticized Dr. Ambedkar. U. Uttama wrote to Dr. Ambedkar, and he said that what is the need of converting into other religion? Hinduism is the best thing. That's what U. Uttama wrote to Dr. Ambedkar. Of course, he was under the influence of the Brahmins who were heading the Mahabodhi society. There was a great debate that started in India. Gandhi, Savarkar, Rajgopalachari, both the Congress nationalists and the Hindu nationalists started opposing Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. And Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar started talking to people about his move. So people were very curious to know which religion Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar is going to join. But Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar was very strategic. He wanted to sever all the ties with the Hindu religion first and then enter on a different territory, as it were. So after the end of the Evla conference, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar became very significant in terms of his religious intentions. He made it clear in the public that he won't become a Muslim, because that will lead to the denationalization of the people. Because if he becomes, or if his followers become Muslims, that will be about 6 to 7 crore more in addition to the already existing population of the Muslims, and that will set all the political process upside down, because that was also the question of the distribution of power. Because the distribution of power considered Muslims as one of the main groups in the transfer of power. The untouchables were not considered to be one of the distinct group because of the political machination by Gandhi and Congress, because they were only given the reserved seats while the Muslims were given the separate electorate. So had Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar become a Muslim at that period, the whole political situation in India would have become very complicated, because he would have added crores of Muslims in India, and that would have demanded more right, more representation in the Muslim bloc. Also, there were Christian missionaries who were trying to woo Dr. Ambedkar in their fold. Dr. Ambedkar said that I would not become a Christian, because if he become a Christian, he will add crores of people in the already existing Christian population, and the strongest nation at the time were America and England, and India was ruled by the English people who were majorly Christians. That would have strengthened the hold of England on India very much, because the English people have had a lot of their allies in India belonging to their own religion. Instead, he said that he would prefer Sikhism. But before that, he made it clear that he was inclined towards Buddhism. But during this period, he made it clear that he would like to become a Sikh. He didn't say it very implicitly, but some of his moves show that he was inclined towards Sikhism. He attended their conference in 1935-36. He attended their conference, and he was in communication with the Sikhs, and he sent his son and a nephew to Amritsar to study Sikhism. They came back after 1.5 months. So in 1935, Ramabai's death and the famous declaration of Yerwada, of Evla, are very famous. And also this is the year in which the political constitution, Government of India Act 1935 was enacted, and according to which the elections for the first time were to be held in India in 1937. The same year, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar was appointed as the principal of the law college. So we can see that lots of events are taking place in India around Dr. Ambedkar and around the political process. It's a very complex reality that's coming into being. In 1936, Jat-Pat Tolak Mandal wrote a letter to Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar to invite him to give a full-length speech on the convention of the Jat-Pat Tolak Mandal. And this was supposed to be a very, very progressive group. So Dr. Ambedkar submitted his speech to the Jat-Pat Tolak Mandal, and Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar attacked the Vedas and the Hindu scriptures in that particular speech, which is historically famous as the annihilation of caste. The caste Hindus, though they showed that they are progressive, they were very conservative when their religion was attacked. And therefore, they opposed Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar's speech. They did not allow him to give a speech in their conference of Jat-Pat Tolak Mandal. And a very famous leader, Santaram, who became a very good friend of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar later, was in communication with Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar regarding this speech. And however, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar tried to convince the organizers that these are his views, which are well reasoned and well established. The upper caste Hindus in the Jat-Pat Tolak Mandal opposed that. Now Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar became very popular and he was very critical of the Hinduism. Walchand Hiranand, who was a businessman from Maharashtra, under his name one engineering college is established in Kharar, he took Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar to meet Gandhi in Sevagram. That's a very interesting meeting that took place between Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar and Gandhi. Gandhi's friends tried to impress Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar that he should be like Nehru and listen to Gandhi all the time. And Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar argued that he is not Nehru, he is a different man, he won't sell or compromise with his integrity as far as he is concerned. And when Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar arrived on the train station, there were thousands and thousands of people to see Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, and Walchand Hiranand was amused seeing this huge crowd of people coming to greet Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, and he told that we spent a lot of money on the Harijans, but nobody comes to us. And Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar remarked that there is a difference between a mother and a nurse. And in that very particular sentence, he made his mind clear. Also attended, or rather inaugurated, a very famous play which showed the plights of the untouchables during the Peshwa rule in Pune. Dakhancha Diva, that the name of the play was Dakhancha Diva, which was on the plights of the untouchables, and Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar gave a small speech and inaugurated that play. Because people came to know that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar is going to inaugurate that play, people came in thousands to attend that play. So in 1936, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar organized a conference of the Mahars in Dadar. This conference is very famous because this conference brought on the dais a very famous European missionary, Stanley Jones, a non-Brahman leader, B.J. Jadhav, Sikh and Muslim priest, and lots of people came to this conference, which was organized in Dadar. And in this conference, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar gave a speech in Marathi which ran into 50 pages. So the manuscript ran into 50 pages, and that speech is now historically famous as Mukti Kon Pathe, which means which way liberty. So this speech very critically attacked the Hinduism and its myths and its anti-social elements. Mukti Kon Pathe. And it was a very well reasoned and very well organized speech which Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar made, and he told his followers during the speech that they should convert en masse. There should not be any individual conversion, but the people should convert en masse. And he encouraged the other castes, the assemblies of other castes, to talk in their own communities for the conversion en masse into other religion. He did not specify any religion, but at the end of his speech he talked about the Buddha. He said that you should believe the Buddha, and his famous word that be your own light. And he ended his speech with this particular word, be your own light. So as a second part, after the speech, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar assembled all the Mahasadhus who were present on that occasion. And those sadhus, they gave up Hinduism publicly that day. They burned their saffron robes and they gave up all the Hindu practices that very day in 1936. So it was like a beginning of going away or drifting away from the customs and the rituals of Hinduism. So the process began well into late 20s, where Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar was telling his followers that they are not the part of the Hindus. And there is no advantage in staying the Hindu. There is no political advantage, and he made it clear that there is no spiritual advantage in remaining a Hindu, which is very significant. He said that my conversion is not material one, it's the spiritual one. So he found, as it were, no spiritual values in that at that time in Hinduism, no spiritual values. He found it completely devoid of satisfying the spiritual hunger of the people. So though he gave various reasons for his conversion, he made it very clear that his conversion is not just materialistic. It has very deep spiritual connotation, as it were. So this 1936 speech, Mukti Kon Pathe, and the 1935 speech, which was printed and sold and which was translated in many regional languages, Annihilation of Caste, are very two important speeches of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar given after the Government of India Act 1935. He has not yet launched a political party. A full-fledged political party was not yet launched. When he became the member of the Bombay presidency, that was by the nomination, and there was no system of elections. So, 1936, a famous Italian monk, Loknath, came to see Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar in Rajagriha, and he met Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar and they had a discussion. And later, Loknath told the people of the press that Dr. Ambedkar is going to become a Buddhist. And he later wrote a letter to Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar and he said that I remember a solitary picture in your room of the Buddha. And I remember you said that the Buddhism is the finest religion in the world. So that's in 1936, recollects Loknath later in his communication with Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. Now, because the 1935 Government of Act declared that there will be elections in India in 1937, and Congress was politically free to contest the elections, and also the Muslim League was ready to take advantage of the future elections in India, and the group that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar was representing had no political apparatus. So naturally, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar founded a political party in 1936, and that party was named as Independent Labour Party. Though the word labor was included in the name of the political party, it was not inclined towards Marxism, and Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar made it clear again and again that his party was not based on the Marxist ideology. So the word labor encompassed not only the working classes but also the people of the lower classes. So this Labour Party, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar remarked that there are two enemies of the Indians, the capitalists and the Brahmins. But he was not a Marxist. He was not trying to define his struggle in terms of the Marxist ideology. He was very clear on that, and he made it clear time and again in his speeches during the election campaign. So this Independent Labour Party was organized very easily because Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar had already organized the Samta Sainik Dal, which was organized in order to support the movement that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar started. So this the cadres of the Samta Sainik Dal became very important element or very important members of the Independent Labour Party that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar started in 1936. This party has the agenda of social transformation. So like Marxist, the party was not aiming at getting the control of the state, but it was more focused on the social transformation and fighting the caste. Annihilation of caste was one of the main agendas of this political party. At the same time, it took on the issue of the labours. So this party included members from the caste other than Mahars and also some backward classes. But this party, the main support for this party came from a singular caste, Mahars. And also the candidates from other castes were fielded, like there was a candidate from the Mang caste. So when the elections were fought in 1936, the Congress won the Bombay Presidency, Bombay Legislative Assembly, the Congress won. However, the party, the Independent Labour Party won significant seats, and they won, the Independent Party won about 15 seats in the election. So there were 2 unreserved seats and rest of the seats were from the reserved constituency. And when Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar of course won the elections, in 1937 Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar won the elections, the Congress party formed the provincial government in the Bombay Presidency, and Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar became the leader of the opposition party. So as we can see from this journey that this period post RTC, post Roundtable Conference, is full of activities and full of landmark events. Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar clearly saw how the political future of the untouchables and the lower classes can be secured through the process of the electioneering, through the process of changing the religion, through the process of organizing the people, so on and so forth. So if we look at this period from 1933 to 36, we can see that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar became a professor of the law college. We can see that during this period he shifted to Rajagriha, he built a house for the books. During this period Ramabai died in 1935. During this period he held the Evla conference where he gave a very lion's call or lion's roar that he will not die a Hindu. And during this period he also started, he also gave a very important booklet, Annihilation of Caste, which in brief summarizes his understanding of the caste and his understanding of the methods to fight the caste system. And during this period he gave a very speech in the Dadar conference, which was held in Mumbai, where people from all various religions were present, which is titled as the Mukti Kon Pathe, which way liberty, which also sketched the path that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar was asking his followers to take. During this period he also formed a political party which fought the election of 1937, but the and also became the opposition party. During this period, he had a meeting with Gandhi, which Gandhi was completely dissatisfied, and Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar parted his ways with Gandhi after this period, because he found that Gandhi and Congress can't do or is not serious about the issue of the untouchability. He created a lot of storm in India when he declared that he will not die a Hindu. Lots of Hindu fundamentalists started criticizing him in the public. There were lots of threats on his life during this period. So this period was marked with lot of creative approach or creative responses of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. Also at the same time, this period created a very concrete bedrock for his future activities.